Welcome, and thank you for choosing to spend your quiet time with our channel. Tonight, we invite you to settle into Dew-Kissed Spider Silk at First Light, a gentle story crafted to soothe your mind and guide you effortlessly toward peaceful sleep. If you find comfort and relaxation in our narratives, we warmly invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more calming content. Before we join Arthur in the tranquility of his awakening garden, we will begin with a short guided breathing exercise to help you unwind. Should you wish to bypass this guidance and drift directly into the story, please find the chapter timestamps located in the video description below. Prepare to immerse yourself in the quiet beauty of dawn, observing the delicate, glistening filigree of dew-kissed spiderwebs alongside Arthur. Please take this moment to find your most comfortable, restful position. Allow your body to feel fully supported, letting it sink gently into the softness beneath you. Feel the comforting weight of your limbs becoming heavy and relaxed. Adjust your pillows or blankets as needed, creating a warm, secure sanctuary just for you. This is your dedicated time to release the cares and thoughts of the day, inviting stillness and calm to settle over you. Imagine the profound quiet of Arthur's garden just before dawn, the cool, damp air filled with peaceful anticipation. Let's begin with a slow, soothing breath together. Inhale gently and deeply through your nose, drawing in the calm, quiet air. Hold it for just a moment, and then exhale softly and completely through your mouth, like a gentle sigh, releasing all tension. Feel your shoulders drop and soften with the outward breath. With each cycle, imagine you are breathing in that cool, clean scent of morning dew and damp earth from Arthur's garden. As you exhale, feel any tightness easing away like mist evaporating in the first warmth of the sun. Visualize the delicate spiderwebs intricately laced with tiny sparkling droplets shimmering in the nascent light. Feel a sense of ease spread through you with each breath. If your mind wanders, simply notice your thoughts gently, like watching leaves drift by, and kindly return your focus to the rhythm of your breath or the sound of my voice. There is nothing you need to do right now except rest and allow the peaceful narrative to guide you. Feel the sensation of gentle weight settling comfortably upon you, grounding you softly. Imagine a subtle warmth, like the first rays of dawn, beginning to touch your skin, bringing ease and relaxation. Allow the quiet wonder of the garden at first light to fill your awareness, bringing a sense of deep calm and contentment. Now, let us join Arthur and step quietly into the pre-dawn stillness. Chapter 1. The Pre-Dawn Stillness. The house slept. A deep, quiet stillness held sway, the kind that exists only in the hushed hour before dawn, when the night has fully exhaled and the day has yet to draw its first breath. Arthur Finch stirred, not abruptly, but gently, like a leaf unfurling. There was no need for an alarm. Some internal clock, tuned to the subtle shifts of light and silence, always nudged him awake in this peaceful interlude. He lay for a moment, listening. The furnace was silent. The refrigerator's hum seemed distant, muted. Outside, the world was wrapped in a cool, damp cloak. He slid carefully from the bed, his bare feet making almost no sound on the worn wooden floorboards. The air in the hallway was cool against his skin, carrying the faint, clean scent of old plaster and beeswax polish. He moved with the quiet intention of someone who respected the sleeping world around him. In the kitchen, the darkness was soft, shapes defined more by memory than by sight. He didn't switch on the light, preferring the gentle gloom. His hand found the kettle, its familiar smooth metal, cool to the touch. He filled it with water, the sound a soft rush, momentarily breaking the profound silence before settling back again. While the water heated, a low, comforting rumble beginning to build, Arthur stood by the back door, looking out through the glass pane. The garden was a realm of shadows, indistinct shapes hinting at familiar forms of bushes and the old maple tree. He could sense, more than see, the heavy layer of dew that would be blanketing everything out there. It was this promise, this daily transformation, that drew him out each morning. The kettle clicked off, its sound surprisingly definite in the quiet. He poured the steaming water over fragrant chamomile leaves and in his favorite earthenware mug, the one with the small chip on the rim that his thumb fit perfectly. The steam rose, carrying a gentle, honeyed scent into the cool air. Holding the warm mug carefully in both hands, feeling its comforting heat seep into his palms, Arthur opened the back door. The hinges gave a soft, low groan, a familiar sound that was part of his morning ritual. He stepped out onto the small stone patio. The air was instantly different, cool, damp, and carrying the rich scent of wet earth and decaying leaves from the compost heap tucked away in a corner. It felt alive, yet utterly peaceful. He drew a slow, deep breath, feeling the coolness fill his lungs, a cleansing sensation. Beneath his worn, soft-soled garden shoes, the flagstones were slick with moisture. He took a few steps further, onto the edge of the small lawn. The grass sighed softly under his weight, releasing more of that fresh, green, dewy scent. Looking up, the sky was a deep, velvety indigo, just beginning to show the faintest hint of pearl gray along the eastern horizon. No stars were visible now. The celestial display had retreated, making way for the coming sun. He felt a sense of profound solitude, but not loneliness. It was a companionable silence, shared with the sleeping garden, the heavy dew, and the slowly approaching light. He raised the mug toward his lips, inhaling the warm floral steam before taking a small, careful sip. The chamomile tea was soothing, its warmth spreading downwards, a gentle counterpoint to the cool air around him. He stood there for a long time, simply being, not thinking too much, not planning the day ahead, just absorbing the pre-dawn stillness. He noticed the way the silence wasn't truly empty. It held the potential for sound, the quiet hum of the sleeping world. He could feel the gentle weight of the dew settling, clinging to every blade of grass, every leaf, every intricate unseen spider's thread, preparing the garden for its fleeting, daily adornment. It was a time of quiet noticing, a gentle immersion before the world began to stir. Chapter 2. First light through the leaves. A subtle shift began, almost imperceptible at first. The deep indigo overhead softened, blooming slowly into washes of pale gray and the faintest rose quartz along the eastern edge. It wasn't sunrise yet, not the dramatic blaze, but the gentle, hesitant prelude. Arthur watched, his gaze soft, unfocused. He'd seen this transition countless times, yet it never failed to evoke a quiet sense of wonder. It was like watching a watercolor painting slowly bleed across damp paper, the colors merging softly, tenderly. The world remained hushed, but the quality of the light was changing, becoming less dense, more luminous. He began his slow walk along the familiar stone path that wound through his small garden. His steps were unhurried, measured, He knew this path by heart, the slight dip near the lavender bush, the place where the stones were worn smoothest. The dampness underfoot kept his movements quiet. His attention drifted to the large, venerable maple tree that stood sentinel in the corner. Its leaves, thick and lush from the summer rains, were still dark silhouettes against the lightening sky. But as the nascent light grew, it began to filter through them. Delicate traceries of light started to appear on the ground beneath the tree, shifting, dappled patterns that trembled slightly with the faintest stirring of air. Arthur paused, captivated by this quiet play of shadow and light. He noticed how the light caught the slightly fuzzy underside of a large maple leaf, outlining it in a soft, ethereal glow. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the cool, damp surface. The leaf felt supple, alive. He could see the intricate network of veins now, a delicate map revealed by the growing illumination. It was a quiet noticing, appreciating the complex architecture hidden in such a simple everyday object. He continued his walk, his gaze sweeping across the flower beds. The colors were still muted in the gentle light, but emerging. The deep purples of the late-season salvia looked almost black, while the pale faces of the Japanese anemones seemed to float like pale moons against the darker foliage. Dewdrops clung to the petals, magnifying the emerging colors, making the soft pinks seem more intense, the whites almost luminous. He leaned closer to a rose bush, its last few blooms tightly furled against the cool air. A single perfect drop of dew balanced precariously on the very tip of a thorn, catching the first direct ray of light and sparkling for a brief, brilliant moment before trembling and falling. The air itself seemed to be warming, losing its earlier chill, though it remained refreshingly cool. He breathed deeply again, this time catching the subtle fragrance of the damp soil, mingling with the faint sweetness of the fading honeysuckle clinging to the fence. He could smell the clean, green scent of the ivy leaves, their waxy surfaces gleaming with moisture. The sounds were still minimal, perhaps the distant rumble of an early lorry on the main road, instantly absorbed by the garden's soft embrace, or the soft drip of heavier dew falling from the maple leaves onto the stones below. Arthur reached the small, slightly rusted metal bench tucked beneath the maple's canopy. He brushed away a few damp, fallen leaves before sitting down, placing his warm mug on the cool metal beside him. He leaned back, feeling the gentle support of the bench. From here, he had a perfect view of the garden slowly revealing itself in the strengthening light. He felt the warmth begin to touch his face, a delicate, welcome sensation. It wasn't the full heat of the sun, but its promise, its gentle arrival. He closed his eyes for a moment, simply feeling that subtle warmth, letting it soak in, easing him into the day with quiet grace. The garden breathed around him, a slow, peaceful inhalation before the full awakening. Chapter 3. The Glistening Filigree. As Arthur sat, his gaze drifted, snagging on something ephemeral, almost invisible until the light caught it just so. Between the sturdy stems of the salvia and a low-hanging branch of the rose bush, a spiderweb was strung, a miracle of fine engineering. In the dim pre-dawn light, it would have been unseen, but now, illuminated by the strengthening rays, it was transformed. Each delicate strand was meticulously beaded with tiny, perfectly spherical drops of dew. It looked like a necklace of spun glass, impossibly intricate, draped across the quiet space between the plants. He leaned forward slightly, mesmerized. This was the moment he often waited for, the quiet spectacle that rewarded his early rising. There wasn't just one web. As his eyes adjusted, he began to see them everywhere. Delicate, wheel-shaped orb webs strung between fence posts, tiny, almost invisible hammock webs spun low across the blades of grass, and tangled, seemingly chaotic cobwebs clinging to the undersides of leaves near the stone path. Each one was a masterpiece, rendered extraordinary by the morning dew. They shimmered and sparkled, catching the light and fracturing it into minuscule rainbows. Arthur focused on the large orb web near the salvia. He admired the precision of its construction, the strong anchor lines, the radial threads like spokes on a wheel, and the spiral-catching thread, each segment glistening with moisture. He could see the tiny architect, a small garden spider, resting patiently near the hub, its legs drawn in, seemingly unfazed by the jeweled palace it inhabited. It was a creature of stillness, of patience, perfectly adapted to its intricate world. He felt a sense of respect for its quiet diligence, its artistry woven from silk and morning mist. He let his gaze wander to a different web, a simpler one stretched between two tall blades of grass. Here, the dewdrops were larger, heavier, weighing the fine threads down into gentle curves. They looked like tiny liquid pearls strung on an invisible thread. As a faint breeze stirred the air, the entire structure trembled delicately, sending brief flashes of light dancing across the nearby leaves. It was so fragile, so temporary. Arthur knew that as the sun climbed higher, this beauty would vanish. The dew would evaporate, the silken threads would become nearly invisible again, their magic retreating until the next damp dawn. This ephemeral nature didn't sadden him. Rather, it deepened his appreciation. It was a reminder of the beauty in transient moments, the quiet wonders that reveal themselves only to those who pause to look. He thought about his former life, repairing the intricate mechanisms of watches, the tiny gears and springs demanding precision and patience. There was a similar intricacy here, but one born of instinct and nature, no less marvelous for its organic origin. He saw the geometry, the physics of tension and suspension, all displayed in these glistening temporary structures. He took another slow sip of his tea, the warmth a comforting contrast to the cool, analytical admiration he felt for the webs. His mind felt clear, uncluttered. Observing these delicate creations demanded a certain kind of quiet focus, a gentle attention that pushed aside the usual mental chatter. It was a form of meditation, grounded in the tangible beauty of the garden. He felt a connection to these tiny, intricate details, a sense of belonging to this small, dew-kissed world. The spiders, the dew, the emerging light, they were all part of a quiet, unfolding harmony. And for this brief time, he was a silent, appreciative witness to their glistening filigree artistry. Chapter 4. The Chorus of Awakening. While Arthur's attention remained captivated by the shimmering webs, his ears began to register the subtle shift in the garden's soundscape. The profound silence of the pre-dawn hour was gently yielding, making way for the first tentative notes of the day. It began with a single clear chirp from the direction of the dense ivy covering the back fence. A sparrow, perhaps, testing its voice in the cool air. The sound was pure, uncluttered, briefly hanging in the stillness before fading. Then, a moment later, another answered, slightly further away. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the sounds wash over him, isolating them from the visual feast. He could hear the soft, almost imperceptible rustle of leaves as that faint breeze passed through the maple overhead. It wasn't a strong wind, just a gentle sigh, enough to make the dew-laden leaves tremble slightly. He heard the plink, plink of larger drops falling from the saturated maple leaves onto the stone path below, a slow, irregular rhythm like a natural water clock. These were quiet sounds, the kind easily missed in the bustle of a normal day, but amplified in the garden's early morning tranquility. From beyond the garden fence, the distant low hum of the waking town began to make itself known. It wasn't intrusive, more like a soft bass note underlying the garden's delicate melody. A car engine starting up somewhere down the street. The faint rumble of an early bus sounds softened by distance and the damp air. They served only to emphasize the peaceful seclusion of his small haven. Inside the garden felt like a world apart, insulated by green leaves and quiet contemplation. Arthur opened his eyes again, watching a blackbird hop onto the lawn, its head cocked, listening for unseen movements beneath the grass. It seemed entirely at ease, part of the unfolding scene. Its occasional sharp melodic call joined the growing chorus. A wood pigeon cooed its soft, mournful phrase from a neighboring rooftop, the sound rolling gently through the air. These weren't dramatic sounds, just the familiar voices of the garden's residents beginning their day. He took another sip of his tea, which was now lukewarm, but still comforting. The warmth had mostly faded from the mug, mirroring the slow dissipation of the deepest night chill. He held the earthenware loosely, feeling its smooth texture, noticing the way the faint sunlight caught the glaze. He felt utterly present, anchored in this confluence of sight and sound. The glistening webs, the dappled light, the soft dripping, the tentative birdsong, the distant hum, it all wove together into a single harmonious experience. He felt a deep sense of connection, not just to his garden, but to the rhythm of the world waking up around him. It was a gentle, unforced belonging. There was no need to strive or achieve, simply to be present and receive the quiet gifts of the morning. He watched as a tiny ladybug, jeweled with dew, navigated the stem of a rose bush. He observed the slow unfurling of a fern frond, its tightly coiled head beginning to loosen in the growing light. These small dramas played out on a miniature stage held a quiet fascination. The garden was alive, breathing, singing its soft morning song, and Arthur was simply there, listening, watching, and feeling profoundly at peace within its gentle awakening chorus. Chapter 5. Carrying Stillness Inward. The sun was climbing higher now, its light losing the soft, diffused quality of dawn and taking on a clearer, warmer tone. Long shadows stretched across the lawn, sharply defined. The magical hour of dew was beginning its retreat. Arthur watched as the tiny perfect spheres on the spiderwebs began to shrink, catching the light with less intensity. Some threads were already drying, becoming, once again, the near invisible strands they were destined to be for the remainder of the day. The ephemeral spectacle was fading, leaving behind the ordinary yet still beautiful greenness of the garden. Arthur drained the last of his cool chamomile tea, the faint floral taste lingering pleasantly. He felt a sense of quiet completion the ritual observed, the peace absorbed. It was time to transition from the stillness of the garden to the gentle routines of his day. He stood up slowly from the bench, feeling a slight stiffness in his knees, a familiar reminder of passing time. He stretched gently, reaching his arms toward the sky, breathing in the warming air. The scent of damp earth was less pronounced now, replaced by the sunnier fragrance of warming leaves and the faint perfume of the nearby lavender. He picked up his empty mug and began his slow walk back toward the house. He paused by a terracotta pot containing a cluster of vibrant pansies. Their faces, velvety purple and sunshine yellow, seemed brighter now in the direct light. He noticed the soil looked a little dry. Retrieving a small watering can from beside the back door, he filled it with water from the outdoor tap, the sound a pleasant gurgle. He watered the pansies gently, the water sinking quickly into the thirsty soil, darkening it. The simple act felt grounding, a small gesture of care for the living things that shared his space. The soft sound of the water sprinkling onto the soil was soothing, rhythmic. As he walked the path one last time, his gaze swept over the garden, taking it all in: the sturdy maple, the resilient ivy, the patches of lawn where the dew was now rapidly disappearing, leaving only a damp sheen. He carried the memory of the glistening webs, the feeling of the cool air, the sound of the first birdsong. These weren't just memories, he realized, but sensations he could hold within himself. He could recall the feeling of peace, the quiet focus, the gentle wonder. This morning ritual wasn't just about observing the garden. It was about cultivating that inner stillness, gathering it like precious dew to carry into the hours ahead. Reaching the back door, he paused for a moment on the threshold, looking back. A robin landed briefly on the fence post, chirped once, and flew off. The garden felt settled now, fully awake, ready for the day. Arthur stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. The air inside the house felt different, warmer, still holding the quiet atmosphere of sleep, but ready to be gently stirred. He placed his mug in the sink, the ceramic making a soft clink against the porcelain. He felt centered, calm, and gently renewed. The quiet noticing, the appreciation for the dew-kissed silk and the garden's soft awakening had laid a foundation of peace upon which the rest of his day could gently unfold. He carried the stillness inward, a quiet gift from the dawn.